The Detroit Lions did nothing at the trade deadline as the depth of their offensive line comes into question after more injuries against the Minnesota Vikings. What up, though, everybody? My name is Spencer Raxter of the Woodward Heavyweights. I appreciate you tapping in here on Lions Nation Unite. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, go give a follow to Lions Nation Unite on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Also, go to lionsnationunite.com to get some of the best merch in the game. And yeah, I know they won, but the Vikings still suck. And you can go get the merch there. And listen, that's not a game I want to talk about. I know it's been a little while since I've talked to you guys on this channel, but it was just an ugly, ugly performance against the Minnesota Vikings for the Detroit Lions, coming off of a bye week at home against an inferior team, against a quarterback that wasn't really ready to start. And you go out there and you just lay an absolute dud. So I that's not what I want to talk about. That Vikings game was bad. And I think the coaching staff is to blame personally because they didn't have their guys prepared. The offensive line, the special teams, Jared Goff, the running game, the penalties, the turnovers, everything looked bad and sloppy. But I think one of the biggest things, or definitely the biggest thing to come out of that, was the injury to Christian Mahogany. Now, it's not exactly confirmed what it is yet. I don't know if it's a knee or an ankle, but he was carted off the field, and Dan Campbell said it's going to be a long time before he gets back there. I would be surprised if Christian Mahogany comes back for the rest of this season. Penei Sewell also banged up with a shoulder injury. Taylor Decker had to leave the game and come back in, as did rookie Tate Ratledge. And I think Lions fans were expecting them to address that position at the trade deadline. I think Lions fans maybe didn't expect them to go out there and get a starter, go out there and get a massive piece from a different team at the trade deadline, but to address the offensive line with some depth and a veteran piece that you could feel comfortable with playing in different roles if need be was something that Lions fans expected, and Brad Holmes did nothing at the trade deadline. Brad Holmes did not make a single move or an acquisition at the trade deadline to bolster the offensive line, the defensive line, or the defensive backfield, which I think were the 3 points of contention amongst Lions fans. And again, this fan base this year was not expecting this blockbuster move. Now, I know some people are hyping up Trey Hendrickson as an actual thing, or how it would take, just a first round pick, go get. Nobody with their right mind was actually expecting the Detroit Lions to go out there and add a Trey Hendrickson. We know how Brad operates at this point, and we know the cap structure and the lack of flexibility that this team is going to have coming down the pipe because of some of their bigger contracts. But I think when you look at a guy like Andrew Wiley from the Washington Commanders, who are actively shopping those two players on their offensive line, including Andrew Wiley, he does multiple things. He plays multiple positions. He's on a one-year contract that only gets paid $3.6 million. He has an upper echelon level of experience in playoff games, and he had performed at a pretty high level when given the opportunity over the past couple of years, where he made over 30 starts in the National Football League. I thought something like that would cost you a fifth or a sixth round pick could have been advantageous after the loss of Christian Mahogany. And speaking of that, before we get into anything else, here is what Christian Mahogany's partner, the guy who was left, the gray bush on that offensive line, Taylor Decker, had to say about his injury and his replacement, Coyote Iosaka.
In that kind of situation?
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, I got to play with him a little bit last year, but I was really excited to come in this year and play with him. So, I mean, we'll see what they say as far as the severity and how long-term it's going to be. But I just hope he's all right mentally, because he's been doing a really good job, and I've enjoyed playing next to him. I mean, he's as physical as they come, super competitive. He's not scared of anything. So I just hope he's okay mentally.
You have gotten plenty of reps with Coyote, and just your confidence level and his ability to step in there if you need him.
Yeah, I mean, even when he came in the game, I was like, we've done this a million times before. We've played a bunch of games. We've played in playoff games and stuff next to each other. So I have the utmost confidence in him being able to go out there, because he's put it on tape. He's shown that he can do it. You know, it's not just because I want it to happen. He's shown that he can perform out there. So he'll be just fine.
And so there you get the stamp of approval from Taylor Decker. And I don't think any Lions fan questions Yodi and his ability to go out there and make spot starts. But being a guy that you expect to be that starting left guard for probably the rest of the season and a stretch run into the playoffs is a completely different story, especially the last time we saw Yodi out there making plays. He was in between a healthy Taylor Decker and multiple time All-Pro Frank Ragnow. Now, that is a completely different story. Obviously, Graham Glasgow has done pretty well at that center spot so far, and this is not to slight him at all, but it is a step down from Frank Ragnow just because the level of play that Frank Ragnow put in and week out was on a different level. And I know I have faith in Yodi to be able to hold his own, but it is a step back. It is making this offensive line worse because if he was better than Christian Mahogany, he would have been out there playing, but he wasn't. So it's safe to say he's not. And I think that's where Lions fans look at Brad Holmes and are kind of upset that he didn't address this position at the trade deadline. And again, I'm not talking about the fan that says, go out there and trade for Trey Hendrickson. I'm not talking about the fan that says, oh, why didn't we get Sauce Gardner? I'm not talking about the fan that says, I would have given up a first for Quinnen Williams and his massive contract. Like, you have to know where this team is, what this team likes to do, and how this team likes to operate. And I think knowing those confines, asking for them to go out and get a veteran piece to insulate that injured offensive line is not too much from Detroit Lions fans. I personally wanted to see them do something, whether it was a veteran piece on that offensive line, whether it was an expiring contract from a fire-sailing New York Jets like Jermaine Johnson. I think there were options there for Brad Holmes, but obviously nobody he thought stood out enough to pull the trigger on, and the Detroit Lions come out of the 2025 trade deadline empty-handed. And this is going to put a lot of pressure on the guys on that offensive line already. Like I said, Christian Mahogany likely done for the season. Tate Ratledge left that last game against the Minnesota Vikings and came back in. Taylor Decker, we know, has been dealing with a lot of injuries so far this season and hasn't looked right just yet. And Penei Sewell, he did something to his shoulder in that game. Now, I don't think that's going to hold him out of any games. I would be extremely surprised if Penei Sewell misses any time. But you know he is going to be banged up for the rest of the years already. So that is 4 of your starting 5 offensive linemen that are dealing with injury or just not in the game. And I don't think asking for a veteran piece that would have cost you a cheap number is too much to ask. Now, I know that not a lot of offensive linemen get moved at the deadline, and these aren't things that really happen because you know your team, you know your scheme, you know the system you're in, and it's hard to change that midseason, especially for an offensive line, and especially coming into a complicated run system like one with the Detroit Lions. But that doesn't mean it can't be done. That doesn't mean we just say, oh, okay, it's fine. Here's what Dan Campbell had to say about the injuries on the offensive line on the flagship today.
In the absence of any additions today, what does the depth look like on the offensive line? Is it Coyote that's going in there at left guard? And we saw Taylor Decker get nicked up a little bit. How's he doing and your expectations of him being able to play against Washington?
Well, it seemed a little more positive as of last night, as to he and Panay both, but I still don't know for sure. I see Yodi. I see Cologne getting some reps at guard, maybe center as well. I mean, we may mix some things up here and move some guys around a little bit. I'm still thinking through all this while I'm getting ready for these guys and game planning. But and then, we got Neese on vet squad. We got Cochran on vet squad. We got Kingsley on vet squad. So we've got options here, and it's about finding the right combination of guys, really, and then just letting them cut it loose, get used to each other, and freaking play relentless, hard-nosed, finishing football.
And like I said, Coyote is very capable of being a starting offensive lineman in this league. We've seen him do it before, but it might have been between a healthy Taylor Decker and Frank Ragnow. Now, you look at Cologne as a guy that they brought in as a veteran that can play multiple positions on that offensive line and provides a lot of versatility to this team. I expect him to be suited up. I expect him to be getting some snaps in the Detroit Lions next game against the Washington Commanders. And this offensive line is banged up. It's not just losing Christian Mahogany. It's Taylor Decker continuing to be banged up. Our guy Tate Ratledge going out of that game, and even Penei Sewell dealing with a little bit of an injury. Hank Fraley and John Morton are going to have to do a lot to make sure that they are putting these guys in the best scenarios and the best situations against the Washington Commanders. And again, this is a game that the Detroit Lions should go out there and win. This is a game that the Detroit Lions should go into Washington, into D.C., get their revenge game, and take it back after the Commanders lost their quarterback for the season. But nothing is a given in this league as we see the Detroit Lions lose to a 9.5-point underdog at home in the Minnesota Vikings. You can't take anything as a given. And the offensive line has been the driving factor of this Detroit Lions team under Dan Campbell. The elite offensive line play, the push and the run game have been things that have stemmed this offense to be one of the best the league has seen over the past couple years. And right now there are cracks in that foundation. And whether it be because of injury, because of retirement, because of age, or because of scheme, that offensive line, John Morton and Hank Fraley need to tighten things up if they truly want to make a run at this Super Bowl. Because there's one thing that could throw teams off. Ask Patrick Mahomes. Ask Tom Brady. Ask any of these guys. If you get into the playoffs and your offensive line is faltering, you're not going to go very far. I expect them to get to shape. I expect them to use a lot more jumbo packages. Expect Dan Skipper in there to slide protections and to do other things to make sure Jared Goff is staying upright in that pocket against Washington. Brad Holmes did not address the offensive line or this team at all at the trade deadline, and the Detroit Lions are set with the guys they have going forward, looking to make a run at a Super Bowl. If you believe this is enough, more power to you. I think the Detroit Lions are right in the heat with anybody in the NFC, but they can't take another game like they go out there against the Commanders or they go out there against the Vikings, and give it up. Brad Holmes believes in this team. Brad Holmes believes in this unit. We're good is not just for the defensive line, but it's for the offensive line as well, as we see him not address an injury-riddled position at the deadline when, honestly, there were names out there. The Washington Commanders were shopping guys. Andrew Wiley could play multiple positions and did so at a high level, winning playoff games, starting multiple games, playing tackle, playing both guard spots. But they believe on the guys that they have on the vet squad and the guys on the practice squad to come in here to take care of business and to not miss a beat. I sure hope for Jared Goff's safety and for the sake of the Detroit Lions, Brad Holmes, Hank Fraley, and Dan Campbell are right, because nobody's coming to save this team, and they've got to do it themselves. Appreciate you guys tapping in. Make sure you smash that like button here on Lions Nation Unite and subscribe to the channel. I am Spencer Axter of the Woodward Heavyweights. Also, give a follow to Lions Nation Unite on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And go to lionsnationunite.com to grab some merch. Appreciate you guys tapping in. See you next time. Peace.